Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where you know the deal. People think they're owed everything because they're special. And in today's episode, holy moly, guys, we're dealing with rude Karens, the worst coworker ever, the worst parents ever, and one OP tells a story about the time a thieving manager tries to frame an innocent employee. And you can only guess what happens. Guys, it's quite the lineup today. I hope you enjoy the stories, don't shake your heads too much, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. This happened probably 17 or 18 years ago. I worked driving a truck for a propane delivery company. It was crappy, hard work, and I hated it. By the end of what was usually a long day, I was bagged. I just wanted to go home, often never even bothering to take off my coveralls before heading home. On this particular day, I stopped around the corner from my work to get gas for my car. I often stopped at this place, so I knew most of the employees. After filling my car and paying for fuel, I was gonna leave, and that's when I decide to give my windows a squeegee. As I'm doing this, a woman in a big new Mercedes pulls in, and she tells me, fill it up and check the oil, while popping her hood. Of course, I don't realize she's talking to me, so obviously I ignore it. The woman again says, hey, you, yes you, fill it up and check the oil. I just look at her and say, I'm sorry, I don't work here, this is my own car. Now, this is where a person that isn't a piece of crap usually says, I apologize, I thought you worked here. And I would reply, no problem, honest mistake, but this isn't a full-serve station. But that's not what happened. The woman gave me a look up and down, and she looked judgingly at my not-so-nice car. And she says, I don't have time for this. Just fill it up and check the oil, now. And immediately she walks inside the store, obviously not listening to my reply. I just stood there a bit dumbfounded, and I was about to leave when I was hit with an epiphany. I opened her hood, grabbed some motor oil that I had in the cab, and I dumped it in her washer fluid tank. I then closed the hood and drove off. About 4 or 5 days later, I stopped at the station to grab a drink when I was working, and the guy behind the counter, who I talk to pretty regularly when I'm in there, asked me if I heard what happened. He then proceeds to tell me the story about this psycho woman that came in the day before. She was screaming about getting some employee fired for putting oil in her washer fluid. It was some guy who works here and he was wearing blue. The employee told her he had no idea who she was talking about, and then she screamed that they were playing dumb and then proceeded to throw a tantrum. A smile starts to spread across his face as he's telling the story. He then looks at my coveralls and it dawns on him and he says, holy crap, it was you, wasn't it? He then reaches over the counter to high-five me. He just flatly told her, we aren't a full-serve station. Nobody pumps gas here. She bitched out the manager on duty as well. And when they didn't know who it was, they just said, ma'am, you probably told somebody who's not an employee to fill your car. There's nothing we can do. She then proceeds to escalate things to the point the police had to be called. Okay, now that's one I've never heard before. Motor oil in the windshield wiper fluid tank. And for all who are curious, OP did pop into the comments to add that yes, the oil got all over her windshield, and no, it did not cause a major accident or anything like that, thankfully. But yeah, I never understand why people react to, I'm not an employee, with anything but, oh, I'm so sorry, let me try someone else. Also, you gotta admire OP's restraints in not putting the oil in something that would cause expensive damage, like the transmission or coolant or something. Okay, so this is not one of my proudest moments, but it felt really good. I was a grocery store cashier, and I had been one for almost 2 years when this happened. And with being a cashier, you deal with a lot of entitled people. At the time, I was job hunting and planning on quitting anyways, so I was kind of playing it fast and loose with my filter. Our store was a bag-your-own-groceries place, but if it was really slow or the customer really needed help, I had no problem helping them, but it wasn't a part of my job and we did not have baggers. With that said, it was extremely busy on this day. The only people on cash were me and my supervisor, and we each had a lineup of 10 people deep. Now, this customer in question was a frickin' nightmare customer that pushed all of my buttons. The guy wasn't using a divider, so his crap got mixed up with the next person. He didn't label the bulk nut item, so I had to send a shelf stalker back to get the code. And the guy was talking on the phone obnoxiously while I was trying to tell him his total. If that wasn't bad enough, the guy threw money all over my counter, sending coins rolling everywhere instead of placing it in my open hand. So the guy pays, and he's got about 6 items. I push his stuff to the end of the counter and then toss a plastic bag on top, and then move on to the next customer. I just wanted to be done with him. Well, this ignorant guy, gets off his phone and he starts screaming at me saying, "Hey, you!" I reply, "Yes." He then proceeds to say, "Why did you not bag this? Do your job." Me, scanning the next customer's groceries and talking to him, say, "I'm sorry, we're super busy, but there's a bag right on top you can use." He then says, "That's not right." I'm just actively ignoring him at this point, and he says, "Hey, look at me when I'm talking to you. The last I checked, we're not a third world country. It's illegal to not bag a paying customer's groceries." Me, literally speechless and now super pissed, say, "Sure thing." I stop scanning the next customer's stuff. I then pick up the bag and start slamming his stuff into it. On purpose, I did bread first, slam the spaghetti sauce on top of it, next the 2 cans of beans on top of that, and then drop everything else on top. I then slide and push it all the way to the end of the counter and then screamed, "Have a nice day." The guy's face just dropped and he grabbed his bag and left. Every other transaction went smoothly, and me and my supervisor had a good laugh about it in the cash room that night. I never took another retail job, and I don't plan to. I just can't deal with people like this in person all day long ever again. That is absolutely epic what OP did. Enjoy that crushed bread, sir, as a-hole tax. I only wish OP responded with, "Well, sir, I'll have you know it should be illegal to be an idiot a-hole customer like yourself." And seriously, in my opinion, I think everyone should have a retail job just once in their life to know what it feels like to be on the other side of things. Like, this dude's probably never served anyone in his life, because if he had, I'm pretty sure he would have acted much differently towards OP. So way back in 2001, I was a naive 19-year-old working retail at a picture framing place. The management of our little shop consisted of our manager Jenny, the assistant manager Nick, and me, the third key. And for those who don't know, a third key is literally that, a third person with keys. I had the ability to open and close the store and act as a manager on duty. But if Jenny or Nick was there, I was just a regular employee. Of course, the names are changed to protect the not-so-innocent. So that said, Jenny was an awesome manager. Middle-aged, but cool. She'd had a lot of fun in the 70s, and she wasn't shy about telling us her hilarious stories. She was also kind of like the shop mom, and she made cookies, and she was always in tune with people's emotions. She always knew the right thing to say to make me feel better, and she was a fountain of real-world wisdom. Everyone loved her. She was also an artist, and her work was starting to pick up steam. That, combined with the onset of some health issues, made her decide that retail work wasn't for her anymore. We were all really sad, but definitely understood. Now, Nick was just a college kid, and he definitely didn't want to be promoted to manager. So a manager in training was brought in to work as a 4th member of management. Let's call the guy Steve. Now, Steve was weird. Loud sweaters in Arizona heat. I was basically a golden retriever puppy, and I tried to chat with him while teaching him the ropes when it was my turn to have him shadow me, but the guy wouldn't engage. It's not just that, but he would stare at me while I worked. The guy would just sit in the office chair and stare. I chalked it up to him being awkward, but it was creepy. Even when I was trying to teach him something, he would barely interact. And when he did talk, it was usually how amazing he was at his last job, or how low the pay was for managers in our company. Okay, so on to the meat of my story. Remember when I said that Jenny was having issues with her health? Well, she calls me one Saturday afternoon when I was off and asked if I would come in to fill in for her. I did, and I ran down to the shop to relieve her. She was having a really bad day, and I was happy to close for her. I also worked the next day, Sunday, and the day after that, the Monday. That Monday, our district manager came in while I was manager on duty, and we got to chatting. Like I said, I was basically a chatterbox, so this wasn't unusual. He asked me how Steve was doing, and I tried to diplomatically tell the guy that Steve was a dud, using the example that on Saturday, when I relieved Jenny, the guy just sat in his office or wandered the floor the whole night. The district manager seemed a bit startled, but not about the guy's behavior, but by the fact that Jenny had not been in the store after 3 p.m. After being in our store for about 6 weeks, Steve starts swapping out with another store in the neighboring city, acting as the manager on duty by himself. Steve was thrilled because he actually lived in this other city, and the rest of us just assumed it was a part of his training. Not so much. It turns out there had been a lot of shrink happening at our store. A huge uptick in people paying with credit card and then coming back later and getting a cash refund. Back then, if you did a return on a credit card or debit, it took a few days for the money to show back up in the account. If people got mean about it, we could do a cash refund, but it had to be approved by a member of management by signing in with their register code and using their key. It was found out that thousands of dollars worth of returns were being done in cash multiple times a day, when before we would have maybe 1 or 2 a week. What's worse is it appeared that Jenny was the one doing all these returns. They seemed to think that Jenny was taking all she could before she retired. That is, until I told the district manager about filling in for Jenny. Apparently, a very large $750 credit card transaction had been returned that night around 7 p.m., and Jenny's code was the one used. When I said she wasn't even there, in my naive way, I saved Jenny. It turns out that Jenny had just given Steve her register code to train him, because it took a few days for him to get his own because of some computer glitch at corporate. After my offhand remark, they took a closer look at our old schedule on paper. And that's when they realized that half of these returns were happening on days when Jenny wasn't even there. So they switched Steve to the store in the other city, which had a better surveillance system, and they caught him using another employee's code to pull the same trick, as well as flat out pulling cash from the till. Steve ends up stealing thousands of dollars. Now, I'm not sure what the actual charges were, but from what I heard, he was very startled when he shows up to work one day to find the district manager and 2 sheriffs waiting in the office for him. Steve was literally walked out in handcuffs, and I was so upset they didn't do it in our store. Jenny ends up leaving shortly after, as the stress was way too much for her. Nick was made temporary manager, and he and I split the opening and closing duties for a couple of months. Then we finally got a new manager who had been entirely trained at other stores. He was okay, but he was no Jenny. Thankfully, he was no Steve either. I think we can all agree, thank goodness OP covered for Jenny that day because it wasn't looking great for her. I just want to know what the master plan was. Like, was Steve planning on stealing a certain amount of cash and then quitting? Or do people like this never think they'll get caught and they just keep stealing until they get caught? But yeah, I'm glad Idiot Steve got caught, and I hope he faced huge consequences because F thieves. So I have this one coworker who, let's call Sally. Sally's worked with us, a very small tech company, for about 1.5 years now. We hired her mainly to deal with low-key tech programs and to answer the phones, but we also trained her to deal with more advanced issues as time went along. Sally, however, has not progressed in her job skills, and she can barely handle the most basics of her job. But that's not important. No, we're here because Sally's sense of entitlement, unlike her job skills, they're out of this world. A thing about Sally is she's got a lot going on, both physically and mentally. She's a big fan of self-diagnosing, and she's asserted to both coworkers and customers alike that she's determined herself that she suffers from the following mental illnesses: bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, anxiety, depression, anorexia, insomnia, ADHD, PTSD, autism, gender dysphoria, body dysmorphia, seasonal affective disorder, and dissociative identity disorder. She also has asthma, she's gluten intolerant, has an unknown number of immunity disorders, is pre-diabetic, and prone to aneurysms. Now, given that Sally has so many ailments, I'm not ruling out that she may well suffer from one, but not one has been diagnosed by a professional. She's confirmed this. She said this is what Google has told her. Anyways, sometimes she just can't work because a customer or a problem upsets her too much, and she needs to take a full 30 minutes to an hour break to, quote, collect herself and to talk to her friends on the phone, aka her therapy calls. Now, this isn't about her mental health, you see. No. A lot of the times, she's calling to catch up and talk about TV or random crap. And you might think that she would take a shortened lunch on these occasions, but you would be wrong. Because Sally is entitled to a full hour of lunch, no matter what. Sometimes, she has a lot of crap to do, and she spends hours on the phone with debt collectors, her husband, her hairstylist, making nail appointments while she's supposed to be working. Again, if you thought she would wait until her OSHA-mandated break or lunch to do these things, you would be wrong. But fret not. Sally's not so inconsiderate as to always have these conversations in our small office space. Luckily, she has her very own break room in which to take her therapy calls and personal calls. It's specifically reserved for her because she's quite loud. So loud that she can be heard clearly from behind the closed door of her break room. And that's alright because none of the rest of us need to focus on work. Also, Sally's sickly and frail and she frequently doesn't feel well. But not to worry, our break room can be easily converted into her bedroom so she can nap all the time. During this time, it would be really rude of us to wake her up because she's entitled to the entirety of the only break room, obviously. Now, if you thought that was bad, on at least 2 occasions, she's come into work, I'm pretty sure hungover, from a night of partying, and she vomited into her trash can. But good thing Sally's vomit doesn't stink, because she waits until the night janitors get there to clean it up. She won't get rid of it herself. The second time she threw up, she left early that day because she just couldn't handle the smell. I don't blame her, neither could we. At least for all of her faults, Sally's a good communicator. She makes sure to let all of us in the office know, and everyone on the phone, how she's doing in great detail. She loves to overshare. Customers are always thrilled to know how she can't focus on their issue because she stayed up all night playing the latest video games, or watched the latest #1 movie on Netflix. As you can tell, our boss isn't really in the office all that often. Yeah, the post ends right there, guys, but what a train wreck by the sounds of it. Like, how in the world Sally still works there is beyond me, because with all the things that OP was listing, she's quite literally gotta be the worst employee ever. Like, at this point, it sounds like she's just showing up to work and collecting free money. Like, seriously, I'm not sure why everyone isn't just tattling on her to the boss at this point, because I'm sure he'd love to know that Sally's getting paid to be absolutely useless. Also, don't even get me started on the number of ailments she says she has. Like, I was completely speechless, guys, when OP says she self-diagnosed herself with basically everything out there. Like, how do you function, Sally? But yeah, let me know, guys. Have you ever met a coworker this entitled, or is Sally way beyond anything out there? We bought our house that we're in 8 years ago. 2 months ago, my husband passed away from cancer. We were financially secure, but when we moved in, we started meeting the neighbors after we were settled in. There was this one little girl who was about 4 years old. As she got to know us, she started spending a lot of time with us. We took her on dinners, shopping, and parks, all that stuff. The little girl even spent the night with us. I spoiled her and I got her so many treats and clothing and gifts. We then met her older sister, who's around 10 years old, who then starts asking for the same things, which I kept giving them, like sodas, snacks, and food. She soon starts bringing her other friends over. I finally decide to put a stop to her and her friend, and I told them I'm cutting off this gravy train because I have to go shopping more often than I wanted to. It was getting old, and I even complained to the parents, hoping that they'll stop their kids, but of course they didn't. So 3 years ago, the older sister, Rebecca, asked me what I'm buying her for Christmas this year. I told her I'm buying you nothing. The same night, she tries to set our house on fire. I was gonna call the cops, but the mother said that would be too extreme, and she begged me not to and said she'll deal with her and she won't be allowed to go anywhere for 2 months, and she'll take away her phone, etc. I saw her going everywhere the same day and the days following. 5 days after I talked to the mom about it, Rebecca sends me a text message asking for $15. No apologies, nothing. Just straight up, do you have $15 you can give me? I forward the text to her mom, and no, nothing. So I stopped acknowledging her when I saw her anywhere. I just ignored her. She then starts tossing things in our swimming pool. My husband told them that he was done with their child, and he put security cameras around the house. She's got major anger issues. She then tried to get her guy friends to take out the cameras, and of course we saw that. We called the cops and showed them the proof. They then talked to the boys, who said Rebecca had offered to let them feel her up if they damaged our cameras. That's when my husband said if they ever come close to our home or vehicles again, they will be carried away in a body bag, which scared them. The family rented their house out and they moved far away, but 6 months ago, they moved back to their house. They come back more entitled than ever. They start sending me text messages on a daily, and the mom kept sending the little one over to ask for so many things, which mostly included food, but not limited to other things. Plus, now Rebecca's 17 years old and the little one's 12. I find out the mom kicked Rebecca out because she couldn't handle her. She steals from everyone and anyone, stores, parents, friends, and neighbors. I blame the mom for not disciplining her when she should have. But it doesn't get better. The little one started following in the footsteps of her older sister as far as wanting snacks and drinks. She comes over demanding bottled water. One day, I told her she should drink tap water, and she says she hates tap water. And the thing is, she too starts bringing a friend around. One day, I saw the friend outside looking very hot. She lives several streets away, so I gave her a bottle of Sunny D. She left, and within 5 minutes later, the little one was at my door, ringing the doorbell frantically, trying to open the door. I was watching from the cameras. They left, but as I'm watching, she took her much younger friend's juice and she pours it all out. And I heard her loudly say, "If I don't get one, you don't get one." Again, it's gotten old. 2 days later, they both come to my door in the guise of checking on me. But when I didn't offer them anything to drink, they start chanting, "I want Dr. Pepper. I want a Dr. Pepper." That's when I told them, both your parents work, just ask them to buy it for you. That evening, they saw a DoorDash delivery come to my place. We had gotten KFC, and immediately they're at my door demanding I share. I told her we only got enough food for my daughter and I and my son, and there was no chicken. They then throw a tantrum and run home. Now, the mother's very aware of these demands that her kids make from the other neighbors. She's been separated from her husband for many years. And the thing is, she can buy high-end designer handbags, get her nails done, all that stuff. But aside from giving her kids basic food to survive, she doesn't get them anything extra. She thinks the other neighbors will do that. I'm grieving over my husband's death, and these people are now asking me for firewood for a gathering that they are gonna have. It's not my job to do that. I don't know what to do because after telling them so many times to stop and that we're not rich enough to feed the neighbors, they don't stop. I don't want to sell my house. They're freeloaders. The mom asked me to sell her our older van on a payment plan, but I refused to sell it. I'm emotionally attached to it because that was my husband's commuter van. It's only 2 months since he's been gone, and I'm not ready to part with any of his things for now. Any advice? Yeah, living next to people like that has gotta be one of the worst things ever. Like, how can you enjoy your home anymore? And for Opie to feel like there's nothing she can do and that she might have to resort to selling her home makes me so sad. Also, kids who run around the neighborhood begging from strangers are in danger. Like, OP is awesome, but there's a lot of dangerous people out there. And I know it's a reach, but that mom has got to step up and be a mom. Like, how do you even get out of that mentality though? The mentality of, I love to spend thousands of dollars on designer handbags, but F my kids. And a lot of people in the comments are suggesting child protective services. This person comments, stop answering the door, block her number, maybe call CPS for a wellness check. Maybe that will be enough for the mom to tell the kids to back off. You may need to be very clear with the kids that they're no longer welcome on your property and send it in a letter to mom. That was the most popular comment in the post with over 1,400 upvotes, guys. But yeah, let me know what you would do if you were in OP's situation. And you know what they say, give a person an inch and they take a mile. But that's entitled people for you. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, it's an r/malicious compliance episode where OP teaches his Karen dad a lesson that he'll never forget. Guys, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.